Pressing record. Sharing my screen. Right, that all looks like it should be working. Let me know if it's not. Yeah, welcome to week 5 of the Lapada lockdown social media webinar series. Update on the webcam is that full reboot factory restart has not restored the webcam, so I need to take it to someone to fix it. So workaround I've got this week is a tool called whereby.com. It's just online conferencing, but actually allows you to do it within the browser, and anyone can drop in. So it's a bit like House Party, but without some of the social problems that House Party can potentially come with if you've been following the debate around that app that's been trending so much. Right, so this week we're going to have a quick look at a couple of what we call sort of expert platforms, Medium and Quora, and then the majority of the time we're going to spend looking at search integration. As ever, let me know if you've got any questions as we go along, and we'll have some time at the end for a quick wash up as well. So if we get started, I've got to go back to Zoom in order to show the chat. There we go, and then drag that down here. He says, right, so we should have the browser, the chat, and my broadcast. Okay, hopefully it won't go out of sync again this week, but we'll see. Right, so looking at a platform called Medium, which I'm sure you've come across. You've probably come across through sort of browsing behaviors and sharing behaviors rather than necessarily sort of searching it out as a platform specifically. It's kind of a cross between a magazine site with curated content and a blog platform that anyone can drop into and create content around. Why it's interesting is it tends to be a bit more longer form, tends to be more discursive, and it has been a space where people who have specialist expertise and the willingness to share that expertise have gone to expound their theories, their reviews, and some more sort of standard blog stuff around kind of advice and indeed goings on in their personal and professional lives. It's worth having an explore. It's quite an interesting channel. It's got a different business model online as to mobile. On mobile, it's very restrictive and almost immediately makes you go to subscription service, which is a bit annoying, and actually has been surfacing a lot of self-help and motivational content to me recently. So I don't know if that is an indication that the platform has degraded in terms of the quality of its content, or it's just the algorithm feeding me what it thinks I need to hear. It's still a very powerful space because it does, as I say, have some very deep content on there, and also the option for you both to select what areas, what categories you're interested in, and then indeed sort of see what it surfaces for you. So if you look on that homepage, I've got editors picks up the top. That's like the magazine section, and then just the sort of trending stuff on the left, and then I've been following people here, so it's showing me some of their updates, and then it's got these different sort of areas. So these are almost sort of micro magazines within it that you can dip into or indeed follow, and actually, if you go into more, there is a whole section around there in there around art. So there is quite a lot of sort of essay content and indeed asset sharing, multimedia in there. So if you, as I say, are a specialist in your area, and if you think you have something that is worth saying that is going to take more than a couple of paragraphs, and you want it to go beyond just your blog, your website, and potentially your LinkedIn, your Pulse updates, as we looked at last week, then Medium's a very good option, and it does have good shareability, and it's got good networking opportunities in there as well. So you will, if you develop your expertise through your regular posting of good content that is getting good responses, which comes both through their platform but also through sort of social sharing, through your other social networks, as we've been looking at, then you can get grouped with other people in that area, and it's a key platform for sort of raising your credibility as a UK or even global expert in your area. Just wondering if we can have a look for something. That's the only problem with splitting your screen like this is stuff. Some of the toolbars get shrunk down and disappear. So we had a look at art there. Let's have a look at what's happening around antiques. So you've got different selections there from individuals and then actual official publications. So again, sort of stuff being shown alongside each other, a mixture of the personal and the professional from a publication perspective. Wonder if we start going to deeper on how to, if people are looking or educating around that. So that's more how to actually create. So yeah, big strong sort of maker community in here. Yeah, not sure anything entirely relevant sort of coming up there, but actually the people recommendations is one of the sort of key areas where you will start to be able to develop your own network. So let's actually have a look at these guys, English Garden and Antiques. There's an online magazine, so actually they might be willing to take guest blogs, which is another route you can take if they are indeed active. So they've got a profile there, but not been posting. Actually, interestingly, some of the profiles I was looking at have stopped publishing. So don't know if that, again, that indicates that actually it's become slightly less important as a platform, but there's still a lot of good content flowing through it. And as I say, as a way of leveling up your expertise can be very powerful. Then next one I'm going to look at was Quora. Let's see, is that small on the home page? Let's drop back out of that. So Quora's question answer networks is a bit like Yahoo Answers, but with a lot more functionality built in, and is actually a really interesting platform. It's quite entertaining to watch. In particular, there's a lot of sort of what's the UK like? What aspects of the UK don't happen in any other country, and UK versus US comparisons, and then there's quite a lot of sort of anecdotal stories that get put up there. But actually, there's a lot of professional content that gets shared through Quora as well. And again, there's a relatively quick way of demonstrating expertise by just finding questions that are relevant to your area of expertise again, and responding to them. And those responses, a bit like Yahoo Answers used to have, you get upvoted. So if you do have something that feels like that is a valid answer, but also an interesting answer, and ideally with a little bit of personality showed in there as well, you can get very sort of prominent exposure on stuff, and you can get thousands of votes, and indeed sort of be part of quite a kind of vibrant, active conversation. So I was just having a little search last night and was looking at contemporary art, for example. So your conversations around who are the best living artists, something where there isn't a definitive answer, but where you might have a very good area of expertise, or indeed strong opinions on things. it could be an interesting space to participate in. And then gives you a couple of options. You've got related questions down the side, and actually shows that people do just drop in and don't necessarily search to see if a similar question has been posed before. So there'll be little bubbles of activity going on, and particularly if you've got strong opinion, an interesting story, or good anecdotes actually about the art and antique worlds, could be a great way to share those. Literally you just need to create a profile and you go from there. And the other thing that you can do is actually subscribe to topic areas. So it's always in the way, this toolbar, no matter where you put it. So there's something called spaces, which is these kind of topic areas, which does have some art, if not antique, spaces in there. So you can subscribe to a whole space and it'll keep you up to date. Or indeed, you can subscribe to a specific question. And then when people are answering it, then you get updates around that. Get these notifications up here. Just example of antiques. Again, you're a bit like with YouTube. A lot of this will be people looking for advice. How do I find the best antiques, value your piece of furniture or an artwork. How do people find antique dealers? There's potential business opportunity right there. How do you find the value of antique cedar chests? Right, so that's getting very specific and quite deep. And see, actually there's not that many answers in there, but you've both got potentially a specific customer opportunity there, but also the wider exposure that will generate, and again will be there for a long time, and potentially will give you that evergreen value of being picked up in search, because that's such a specific question and topic, and because there's a reasonable number. There you go, there's the follow button there, and you've got 15 people following that. So small number relative to the internet, but in terms of potentially very warm custom audiences, that could be good. It depends very much on your sort of personality, whether you have the time and inclination to go into this kind of space and engage. But a bit like I was actually saying with LinkedIn last week, it's a much more positive space on the internet. People are generally kind of celebrating expertise and entertaining anecdotes and perspectives, rather than getting into their camps and raging against each other. So it's not a bad space to spend some time in. Again, it's not something that you need to sustain. You can drop in, have a browse around when you do have a bit of spare time, if that's the case. And as I say, subscribe to some topics and to some specific questions, and then you will get alerts, if relevant themes and specific questions and answers come in. So just that it's a space that not everyone will necessarily consider as part of their sort of social media strategy, but it's something that I'm quite warm on. As I say, if you have the right perspective and personality, I would say, for it. That's Quora and Medium. I would say, like, mostly it's a case of sort of feeling a way around these spaces and getting warm with them. So say sort of just dropping in and doing some upvotes, some comments. Is a good way of just sort of building a presence for yourself. Like all of these platforms, Quora has an algorithm, so it's looking for participation, first and foremost, and then you can start answering questions as well. Those are the social networks. What I wanted to sort of focus on mostly this week was actually the integration of social media with the wider sort of digital landscape. Again, social media is often sort of treated in a silo, but is absolutely key that it links up, that it's displayed on your website prominently, so that you're able to sort of make that conversion from a website visitor, to an ongoing relationship, wherever possible. And secondly, actually, it should flow through your e-newsletters. So e-newsletters remain, apart from SMS, which is a trickier channel to use, e-newsletters are the most powerful way of building and retaining a relationship with your customers. I know that GDPR has obviously sort of made things trickier in that aspect, but really it's just sort of regulated what was a bit of a Wild West landscape that a lot of people were abusing. So obviously you need to be asking when people are giving you their email address, that they are consenting to an e-newsletter, and ideally to marketing permissions, because as we looked at with Facebook and Instagram in particular, you can then actually upload your email list to that and target those people within social media if you have those permissions. So you want that as a sort of secondary tick box when people do sign up to your newsletter. So e-newsletters are going to have a better response rate. They've got more exposure. They land in everyone's inbox, and they have a better sort of open rate than pretty much any social media channel. But you can have this sort of virtuous circle of activity flowing through. So as I think we talked about sort of early on in this series, for Francis Bacon, we run their social channels, but actually their key content comes through what's called news, but I mean, technically it's actually a blog. So we update this just twice a month, sometimes even once a month. And that is enough, because we've been doing it for years and years. And because the sort of search value for Francis Bacon, for searches around his name is already so good, because the site is very rich, with those relevant keywords, around himself, his life, the people he's known, and of course his artwork. So it's going to do well. But the fact that we have content every month flowing through here, again reinforcing those keywords and bringing new ones in there, just means that it's keeping this site up above anyone else that might be talking about Francis Bacon, be that more of a sort of amateur blogger, or indeed somewhere like a sort of big gallery that's showing his works. So this is important. It's also interesting. It keeps the site alive. There's always fresh content every month that people can come and see. But this content then also flows through the social channels, and it's promoted in the e-newsletter. So yeah, we do try and go deeper in the blog, and then the newsletter will provide a combination of a précis of this blog post, but then wider news around exhibitions, or auctions, and any other sort of news related to the artist, and the estate. So that just sort of keeps that audience warm. And then if we do have anything specifically happening on social media, like a sort of campaign where inviting people to participate in some way, getting that through the newsletter as well, just keeps this sort of virtuous circle going back out to your social channels as well. So your social channels, because they will often be linking into your website, they will be actually helping with your search optimization as well. So any inbound links coming to your site, in particular where they are using the relevant keywords to your main activities, will be helping. So all of your social activity, and in particular where your content is being passed on by other people, so it's third parties linking in, all of that will be helping to keep fresh links and inbound links, which are like sort of hands or even ropes that are pulling your site rankings up, specifically around these content areas that these keywords are based around. So, and that will be a mixture here for Francis Bacon, for example, as I say, of keywords related to his life. It's all the galleries, the exhibitions that he is exhibiting at, and things like, say, the catalog resume. So catalog resume, you're starting to link through, in this instance, actually to the e-commerce side of things. So the ability to buy some of these items, and it's key that you're not obviously sort of flogging stuff through these channels, that you're being more interesting and discursive most of the time. But again, the occasional reference is obviously to something that you can buy, particularly if you are a gallery with an exhibition of works that are for sale, or indeed an antique store with a range of things, again, in the specialist area that might be rich in keywords, so where you can dominate the internet space in that area. And actually just this particular template, which actually was created bespoke, but you can get some very nice templates through WordPress, Squarespace, and so on. It just is visually engaging, particularly because it will change, as I say, on a very frequent basis. That's the sort of theory, if you like, of just the content flowing through the site, and through your newsletter and through social. There are some tools that can help you to, first of all, investigate what people are actually searching for, and then see what Google is identifying as sort of the keyword groups around those areas. So the first one that potentially you could take a look at, and apologies if you were at the Lapada conference 2 months ago, but we're going to look at some of the same areas here, but in slightly more detail. So Google Trends is a really useful tool. So Google Trends will take a snapshot of searches over any period of time and in any country, leading back to, I think, 2004. So can be very useful, but does need a little bit of mining into it, to provide the most use. So what I've just gone to, it's trends.google.com. You enter essentially just a sort of broad keyword, to start with, and then the key thing to do, particularly if you are just operating in the UK, and typically with UK customers, is to switch it to United Kingdom. But if not, you can have a global perspective as well, or you can switch between countries. What you can't do, unfortunately, is have a combination of countries here. So you'd have to do specific searches. And then you can go, as granular as the last hour, right the way back, as I say, 16 years. What I've got it set to at the moment is a 5-year perspective. And actually, let's just see if anything does come out of that really macro view. I think we talked about this at the conference very briefly, but there was this huge spike in 2005. So it looks like February or March 2005. So this is an index out of 100. So that's the sort of maximum point of search exposure in the United Kingdom over the last 16 years. So be interested to see what that was. Probably it was something major happening around the Antique Roadshow, for example, or dare I say even salvage hunters or something terribly low rent like that. Apologies if anyone's associated with salvage hunters. I love it; it's very entertaining. So it'd be interesting to look at that spike. If it wasn't driven just by something particularly entertaining or happening on television, or something particularly scandalous, happening in the national press, that could be an opportunity. But if we go back to the past 5 years, what I'm actually interested in here is looking at the seasonal trends. And I think what we identified before was actually, around the springtime. So you go April, October, January and February, Yeah, so at the start of the year generally, but with another spike potentially in the autumn, sees a very big spike. Again, so it can be easier, once you've identified that general trend and sort of seen that's happening, you can then drop into the past year. So we'll see, yeah, so spike end of January. So, is that sort of people, starting to come out of the Christmas stupor, starting to have a bit more money in their pocket, or indeed starting to plan their activities for the year, thinking, okay, yeah, this is part of my reset, I'm going to buy something that is, going to, refresh my my interior design, or it might even be business. And then you can, enter a customized time range there. So if you've got a bit more time and you want to investigate that specific spike, you literally just put in that month, and then you start to drill down into what's happening around it. So down the bottom, you've got related topics. You've got some regional data there, but that's not telling us a huge amount at that point, to be honest. But starting to get into related topics, and it can start to be interesting. So quite often, you'll have personalities featuring here. You'll have the TV shows. You've also got a couple of options here. The default view is rising. So in this period, what topics have actually been on the up? Potentially more useful for you is what are the top topics overall, because this is giving us the data. So these are the people essentially potentially putting their hands up and saying, I am interested in antiques, which is too broad. I appreciate that. So what we're going to be looking for here is something that we can drill down into. We've got Antiques Fair, we've got Antiques Roadshow coming up second, and indeed fifth with the US version. On the related queries, that's a sort of separate search string that people are putting in. Stephen Moore Antiques is coming up. Christina Trevelyan is coming up. Again, that's topical, as in sort of trending rather than top topics overall. But those people obviously sort of generating a lot of specific searches, so doing well with their online activity, or indeed are in the news and social agenda. We've got auction, we've got antique shop. They're not huge, but this is potentially going to be a decent volume of people, certainly across the year as a whole. Hemswell Antique Centres, antique store in Hemswell Cliff, so they are doing very well with their search, it would seem. Okay, and then what I'm looking for is something specific, that you might actually be looking to promote and sell. And chest of drawers, again, it's not huge in relation to the overall volume, but it's the first product, apart from top pottery, that we're seeing come up. So at that point, you can go back in up here, antique chest of drawers, and drill down. And we've got IKEA. We've got French as a spoken language. I don't have the time or headspace to surmise why that might be exactly. But you've got antique furniture as a topic. So then it was giving me the option there to break that out. So then it's giving me the interest over time. And it's giving me, again, related topics, but then also the sort of related queries. So the most people here are searching for antique furniture restoration. So again, it might not be relevant to your specific activity, but it doesn't mean that you can't talk about it. If you're working with a restorer, and there is a story around, an antique chest of drawers that you've discovered, and then you can work with that restorer, to create a piece of content that goes on your social channels, on your blog, features in your newsletter. Actually, that's got a very good chance, of being found, by these people. Vintage furniture near me. I don't know what you feel about the term vintage, but it's what people are searching for. So using vintage furniture, and then rather than near me, your keywords would be your actual sort of location areas, so that Google is identifying your geography, and then where people are in that geography, you're surfacing you and your store or service. Also, antique furniture shops near me. So antique furniture shop, vintage furniture. So keywords to be bringing through as naturally as you can into your content. And that includes the content on your website as a whole. Obviously, we're talking about this fresh content because this is a social media series, but actually the on-page SEO, which is the sort of technical search aspects, of your site creation, you want to be rich in these keywords as well. So the permanent content, if you like, wants to contain these keywords in prominent places like the homepage, and then backed up in your deeper pages where you're going into specific categories, or indeed specific items that you have for sale. And you can explore each of these further as well. You can go back to these topics. So actually, mahogany, coming up quite high there, and then some other related areas, other furniture items that you can break out rather, and explore. And actually, the chest of drawers has got a different spike there of the autumn. We saw that there was a bit of a spike in the spring and a bit of a spike in the autumn. Actually, for the past 12 months at least, that has been a bigger spike in the autumn for whatever reason. So if you are looking to release a piece of content about the restoration of this incredible antique chest of drawers that you have just sourced and brought into your offering, then doing it in September, ready for that October spike, is a good thing to do, for example. Okay, so this will give you the sort of broad categories and some very broad sort of keyword topic areas. Then you want to go into a different tool, which is another Google tool, of course, because we're talking about search. And this is the Google AdWords Keyword Planner, which is not just a long term. It's also can be a little bit tricky to find sometimes. So there are different ways into the Google Ads platform, and indeed different tools within there. So I'll provide this link with the follow-up, but what you're looking for here is that keyword planner, which brings you into here. And then this has got a couple of different options. So you either start with the keywords that you've identified, or you can actually start with your own website, or if there is, say, a competitor who you think is well established and seems to be coming up high in search, you can start with their website and see what they are indexing for according to Google, and therefore what you might be looking to match in terms of your keywords. What we're going to do today, rather than anything quite so nefarious as that, is go for that. I can never spell it on these calls. Antique chest of drawers. Right. Now, don't get overwhelmed, but there are a few things here as well. So the first is the search volume trends. So you can check again. Blue is the overall searches, red is mobile, so it doesn't really matter to you at this point. So you're just looking at blue. So actually, here Google is telling you that for that very specific keyword set, actually January is your high point rather than October. So as I say, two spikes that we're seeing, start of the year and then the autumn. So you can aim for either or both. And then it's starting to break out the specific keywords that people are looking for in this area. So you've got antique chest of drawers, which has got 1,600 monthly searches. So at the top again, you've got locations. So if you are just marketing to UK customers, it's very important you set it to that. If you are going beyond, I suggest doing it by market individually, because otherwise, the view will be too mixed. Again, mahogany is coming up there. Vintage is coming up there. Victorian is coming up there. Antique pine is coming up. Just specific antique drawers, Georgian, Chinese apothecary cabinet. So these are all quite kind of specific to those product areas. But if we happen to be Victorian specialists, let's have a look. If we can get deeper into this. So Victorian gentleman's dresser, Victorian chest of drawers for sale, Victorian bow-fronted chest of drawers. Some of it will be the sort of very specific product related, and some of it might be sort of broader. What you're looking for, as I say, is what people are actually searching for. So then you can match that with the keywords that you're using. And so what you're trying to do, is find the biggest. But so sorry, let me rephrase that. You are looking for the biggest, because that has the highest volume, will be the most important. You're also looking for the mid and long tail. So where people are searching for Victorian tall boy chest of drawers, Victorian bow-fronted chest of drawers, that's obviously a very specific search. So whilst you might have very small volume, those are very likely to be potential customers, if you happen to have that, for sale. Making sure that you are bringing these keywords into that content, and making sure that it's natural, as Google can tell if you are artificially it's called keyword stuffing, where you're trying to include as many keywords as possible in a short piece of text. But then also the Victorian chest of drawers, so your key keywords wants to be around the link. So if it's a post that's then specifically deep linking to that item on your website, those are the keywords that link is on. And if not, if it's just contextual, then those are the keywords that you use the closest to the link, and or the closest, the most sort of the highest priority, in the post. So if it's a blog post, comes in the first paragraph, potentially even in the title. And when you are on blog platforms, they will actually give you guidance, as to how your search terminology, is looking for each individual post. So following those guides is also important. We're not going into that level of detail. As I say, this isn't about your digital platforms, but it's about how the whole thing plays together, and about how you research and find those keywords and those trends, and then match those things together with your offering, with your content, in order to try and find the best match you can, and benefit from these people who aren't just sort of floating around the internet. They are specifically putting their hands up and saying, I am a potential customer of yours. I don't think we need to go on to Barclays, certainly. So that activity is a combination of what we call on-page and off-page. So anything on-page is on your website, anything not on your website is off-page. Another key part of this, along with the social activity that we've been talking about, is online PR. So again, taking these keywords, and if you are placing articles, interviews, features, whatever they might be, with third-party bloggers even, who you can invite, to write a specific piece about, your upcoming exhibition, for example, come and attend the launch, have a preview, or indeed a full magazine, online magazine publication. Just making sure that when they talk about you, they are providing a link wherever possible, and they're also making their content socially shareable. And where they are sharing their content on social, they are tagging you properly. That's probably the most common mistake. Some publications, the bigger publications in particular, you can be a little bit hesitant to give you that inbound link because they know how valuable it is, and they don't want to necessarily be pushing people off their website and to yours. But often they will understand that this is the game. You have given them something of value in kind, by giving them something exclusively, or at least ahead of the public. So if you've got a good relationship with them, making sure that they have that inbound link, on their article, on their social channels, and then that they tag you, is the most important thing. Including a hashtag that's relevant to you can be good as well, but it's that handle and that link that are the most important things. And those, as I say, those are the strongest inbound links that you can generate, and the inbound links are, along with fresh content that's relevant, the most important thing that Google is looking for. One final point on those inbound links. So Google has a way of gauging authority, which is a combination of the breadth of content that the site has as a whole. So the Times or the Guardian, obviously do very well, but then also the depth of content that it has around a specific content area. So actually, you can see, relatively small but niche blogs, who are talking about antique chests of drawers week in, week out, will rank alongside a Guardian piece, looking at the restoration, of antique drawers, if they happen to do so. If they do, hope you can get in on the action. So I hope that didn't all get too technical. As I say, like all of these things, are worth playing around with, and do take a bit of fiddling, before you can get to that place where you think, actually, this is specifically useful, to me. But it's also it's a mentality. Even social media and PR companies don't necessarily realize the value that their activities are bringing to search, and that actually a lot of what they are doing is more about the search value than the PR or social exposure value. So it's always the sort of second half of things that you can't necessarily see. It's that dark matter that we might have used as an analogy before, but it's having that benefit. And over time, hopefully, you will be able to see more people coming to your site as a result. Again, we're not looking at digital, so we're not going to go into something like Google Analytics, for example, but you can do that, and you should do that, and you should be looking for the referrals and where the traffic is coming from, and then seeing, if particular kind of hits, are helping to drive more traffic specifically, but also the trends over time for your own site. Are they increasing, or decreasing? And if they're not increasing, what can you do to increase social activity and online PR, to help that organic search value? Right, I think that is more or less everything that I was looking to cover. To say, I hope it didn't get too technical. I hope it's not overwhelming. We'll share those links. You have a play around with them. Do what you feel comfortable with, but also don't be afraid to push yourself out there a little bit more. Particularly in the current landscape, people are looking for distraction. They're also looking for information still, and some people, might even be looking for things that they might like to purchase that they can't at the moment because they're in lockdown. So let's hope that all ends sooner rather than later, and we can emerge stronger, fitter, or at least more prepared, for our social media and our digital communications. Any questions on any of that, first of all? No open questions. I was hoping it's so this is the Zoom webinar format. It's a shame we can't see you, but yeah, Crispin, I've been using yell.com to promote my services, mainly valuations. Had some success. The social media endorsements for my social media comments on this form of advertising. Yeah, I think anything where you are talking about reviews, is very powerful. Like this sort of social proof. People will find it in different ways, but people will look for it regardless. So certainly certainly actually Yelp so ties into the sort of Google reviews, your program listings, your Facebook reviews, as we talked about. TripAdvisor, we haven't covered, but if you have a profile on TripAdvisor, taking advantage of all the bump support that they will give you, the signage, for example, the stickers and so on. Following up with people who are good customers, asking them to leave you a review somewhere. Having a standard follow-up, actually. Trustpilot, even using them. Although that is an investment, so you need a certain sort of volume of customers to look at doing that. So anything that you can do to be encouraging more people to review you, because if you can be encouraging people to review, you're more likely to get at least a kind of a fair mix of those reviews. Typically people go to review sites just to either criticize, complain about something, or because they've had a fantastic experience. Whereas obviously most people most of the time will have something that's more in the middle. So if you can be encouraging a larger volume, larger proportion of your customer base to leave you reviews, you're more likely to increase your overall averages and indeed just sort of generate volume of reviews as well. So recommend that. New news page currently at the bottom next to about us and content. I would move that up. And also often the sort of the social buttons get relegated to the bottom, because web designers like to keep everything clean. Or they'll make them muted, or they'll make them small so they fit in the nav bar really nice and neatly. So it's not exactly a battle, but it's something that we need to ask quite often if a website is being built or redeveloped. Is can you just increase the prominence of that? And the news section, at the very least, wants to be very clearly sort of flagged in your navigation bar. If it's not being pulled in, with some previews, into the homepage. But I would have it. Either it depends what your website is laid out like, but sort of part of the carousel at the top, or sort of sidebar down the side, for example. Anyone else? Indeed, on as I say, any other aspects of it, or anything else that we've covered in previous weeks? So that was a new question, but I think probably just because I haven't. Here we go. Open questions. Find it very hard to get customers to leave a review. It's one of those frustrating things, isn't it? But you should probably know it yourself from the amount of emails that you've had, when you've bought something. All you can do is use your sort of personal relationship with them, to request it. But it's not easy to do necessarily. Sort of personal email, rather than anything automated. Just saying, thanks so much. Giving them the specific link, specific direction of where you want them, to leave that review, and just explaining, is actually sort of a key part of driving more business. So is important to you as a business, but that's all you can do is make the request, really. Where is it best to have reviews posted or left? So in terms of search prominence, yeah, Yelp integrated with Google, Google reviews, straight up, yeah, or TripAdvisor, obviously, has very strong prominence within search, and also, strong internal search and sort of browsing behaviors. So depending on how much of a sort of destination you are, and how much people might be doing local searches when they're coming to your area in order to find you, then Yelp, TripAdvisor, or Facebook. Yeah, Pinterest we did have a look at earlier on, but yeah, it's very good for driving traffic. Yeah, certainly for some topics, it's unparalleled, and it also now has some very good advertising options. So you're talking about close to the easy for you to say, it's close to the lowest cost per click out of any platform if you are doing promotions within Pinterest, but also performs very, very well organically, and yeah, has higher click-throughs than anywhere else. So yeah, highly recommend using Pinterest, creating some beautiful visual boards that can also inspire people, if they are looking for interior decoration, to spruce up their home with some new artwork, if they are doing some interior design for someone else, for example. So yeah, so question about Google reviews being hard to leave because you need a Google account. I mean, so Facebook, most people will have a Facebook profile. Yeah, I hadn't thought about it being tricky to leave a Google review. But yeah, if people don't, and if you have a Google account, like a Gmail or something, it should be fairly quick. But yeah, I think in which case you could just ask people to leave it on their preferred platform, but just making sure that you are providing a link to your specific profile on those platforms. So maybe providing Google, TripAdvisor, Facebook. Yeah, reviews are the gold dust, definitely. And if you are lucky enough to have a big enough business, then with a lot of purchases being made, then Trustpilot is very good, because it's that third party follow up where they are looking for endorsement. It feels less self promotional, for a third party site to follow up. But yeah, there is a subscription charge for that. Anyone else? Any final questions? But yeah, if we do run this again, then yeah, we should bring reviews into it. That's a good point. Great. Well, thanks very much for your time and engagement. Yeah, I hope your businesses are coping well, as well as they can, with the current situation. Fingers crossed for everyone that opens out in due time, and everything can go back to normal, but with a certain sense of appreciation of what we had, potentially. But yeah, I do appreciate you taking the time to listen and the questions. And yeah, wish you all the best.